Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digi Finance video. So today I'm going to be hopping back over at UUTI for their bi-monthly sales rankings. This time it is going to be for the later half of the month of June, and we definitely can see the shift in buying habits and the shift in what players are playing with in their meta, and kind of correlate the two to bring some interesting results and see what people are playing, what people are buying, and why. So, going over their sales rankings, starting with their best-selling super rare during this time period, we have Gankumon. So, Gankumon is one of the new black level 6s that came out with BT06, and he's definitely one of Black's more powerful level 6s because of his on Digivolve ability, where he gets to delete all of the opponent's Digimon with the lowest play cost. So this is really good because if they only have one Digimon out, then just straight up deletes it, disregarding what its actual play cost is. But if there's just multiple Digimon out, then he's just going to be picking off the weak one. But regardless, the fact that he's still acting as some really solid removal for Black, where Black was lacking a lot of removal before, is a big reason why Gankumon is being played, on top of the fact that he is a Royal Knight, and we do have some Royal Knight synergies. So that's part of what is making him so good. On top of that, he has another ability where during your turn, while there is an active Digimon on the opponent's side of the field, then this Digimon gains Security Attack +1, which also will allow him to push the overall aggression of the deck, and you could come up with some very interesting combination of cards to make this ability even stronger. So you could boost him and give him Zubugan Punch to make him hit for even more security, even hit harder on the opponent, and delete one of their Digimon. Like, this card's just looking to be a really good card for Black overall, and that's probably why it's the best-selling SR, considering there's a lot more attention on Black recently, considering Alphamon is still a very popular card, and Alphamon is a secret rare, otherwise he would probably be in this slot. And then if we hop over to Japan's tournament result data, we could see that Black was on the decline earlier, and now there's just a small, ever so slight uptick in Black's representation. Even though it's staying relatively consistent, there's still some attention on Black, and Black is still being played, as also represented by the graph here. But if we click on the decks that people are playing in Black, we currently can see 3 decks, and 2 of the decks are Gankumon decks, so it just leads me to believe that people are picking up Gankumon and picking up the cards revolving around him, so it only makes sense that Gankumon is the best-selling SR, considering he does have some more attention on him. Next, we have the best-selling rare during this time period, which is looking to be Davis. So Davis is a blue tamer that came out all the way back in BT03, and Davis to this day still is a really good tamer to be utilizing for basically every single blue deck ever. So what he's doing is he is a memory fixing tamer, so if your memory is ever less than 3, he'll just hard set it to 3, which is just really good because it allows you to play your cards more efficiently. And then on top of that, what he's probably being played for the most is because he has this nice on play ability where we get to look at the top 3 cards of our deck and add 1 blue and 1 green Digimon from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So this is a really good ability to help with the overall consistency of the deck, so that way you could try to see the cards that you want to see more often than not, paired up with just blue's level of card draw, all making it just a really good tamer and a really good color to be playing, especially since we know in BT06 the Bond of Friendship deck is looking to be pretty popular, on top of just blue having a whole bunch of other really popular and powerful decks like Hexablaumon, like All Force, and so on. So if we just hop over to Japanese tournament results, we could see that blue had this really big explosion after a small down period, and this explosion probably is why Davis was selling as well as he did, because just a lot of people are picking up the card, and it is also reflected in the graph over here that we just see this huge uptick in blue, and even though it is tapering out, it is still showing that it is one of the more popular and one of the more powerful decks that's currently being played in the Japanese meta. And then if we hop over to see Blue's overall representation, we could see that a lot of the decks, if not all of the decks, are all Bond of Friendship decks, and we could even see that every single one of those Bond of Friendship decks is playing Davis in some capacity. So any new players looking to play that deck, we're definitely picking up Davis's, thus making him one of the best, if not the best, selling rare in this current time period. And then the best-selling uncommon during this time period is going to continue to be Saver Hackmon. So Saver Hackmon is still just a really good card to be playing in the Jessamon deck, and we already know that the Jessamon deck is still a very popular and very powerful deck in Japan, if not one of the more popular and powerful decks currently in the Japanese meta, and this card just plays a huge role in what's making that deck so powerful. So he has a nice when digivolving ability where you get to play a Sistermon from your hand for free, which is really good just because spawning more Digimon is always a very good and powerful thing because it's just creating more of a board presence, and that board presence sometimes is just going to be really hard for the opponent to deal with. Plus we know that Sistermon has just a whole bunch of synergies with Hackmons and Royal Knights, so it's not like the Sistermons are just dud cards just coming onto the field. Both of them are just, again, very, very powerful that synergize with the deck. And then he even has a nice inheritable ability where when you're attacking once per turn, when you have a Digimon with Sistermon in its name on your field, then this Digimon gets to become active. So this is just really powerful because it allows Jessamon to swing multiple times, and then you could boost Jessamon to some insane degrees. So that way you get multiple attacks, and with those multiple attacks, you could deal lots of damage and be able to use a wide variety of abilities multiple times. So it only makes sense why Saber Hackmon is just performing the way he is in terms of his sales ranking. And then, as we could see, hopping over to the data, that red is still one of the more popular and powerful colors, if not currently the most popular and powerful color. And we could see in the graph that the data kind of just makes sense. Hopping over to what people are playing in red, we could see that every single one of the top decks that people are playing are all Jessamon decks, and Saber Hackmon is a 4 of in all of those decks. So again, anyone looking to pick up the deck is definitely looking to get that card, and usually you want to try to start with the more expensive cards first, so people who already picked up their Jessamon have their Jessamons and are just looking to finish off their deck. And it's just easier to get a lot of the cheaper cards because, well, they're lower rarity, so they're going to have a lower price tag overall. And then the best-selling common during this time period is going to still be the level 5 Eosmon. So what's making this card stay at this rank for so long, considering the last couple of sales rank videos, Eosmon level 5 was the best-selling common, is just what this card is doing. So the part that's making this card probably stay at the best-selling common for all of this time is the ability where you could put up to 50 of it into your deck. So most of the time players are going to be buying only 4 copies, but with this version of Eosmon, she breaks that rule and you could run any number of her. So usually you'd probably run anywhere between 8 to 16 of this version of Eosmon, which is more than double, if not triple, the representation of the normal card in any given deck. So that's probably a huge contributing factor to why Eosmon is still the best-selling common during this time period. On top of which, the Eosmon deck is still a pretty interesting deck to be playing around with because it is a green-white deck, and what this card is doing for that deck is just being a very key part of that deck by having this nice on-attack ability where from your hand, you could play one Eosmon level 5 for free, so they're able to spawn each other, and then she even has a nice inheritable source where during your turn, you get to increase the DP of this Digimon by 1,000, so when you go up into your level 6, then she'll be boosted by an extra 1,000 thanks to this Eosmon, and then the level 6 also has interaction with trying to put more Eosmon underneath her to make her even more powerful. So between all of those elements combined, that's kind of why Eosmon is still the best-selling common during this time period. And then taking a look at the tournament result data, we could see that green was on this huge downturn, and now it's starting to climb back up. and that is also represented in the graph here, where green just took a huge dive and then is slowly climbing up. And if we could take a look at green's representation, we could see that right now half of it is about Eosmon and the other half is Rafflesimon, which is a really powerful deck that came from BT05 and is still performing quite well. But with the Eosmons, we could see that the level 5 Eosmon, people are playing 12 to 15 of them in their deck, and that's just a lot of commons that need to be bought up, all of the same kind. So again, that's just the big contributing factor to what is making the card be the best selling common during this time period, is just how unique that ability is, where it could be played in any number of quantity in your deck. And then the big important thing about this data that we do have to still keep in mind is the fact that this data is not taking hybrid decks into consideration when making that graph, but they do have a hybrids deck section. So we could see all of the hybrid decks that are currently being played in the Japanese meta, and there's a lot of interesting and diverse options in the different hybrid decks that you could be playing from, and it looks like the hybrid decks are doing relatively well in the grand scheme of the meta, considering how many of them have gotten top places. That, again, is not represented in the graph or in this half of the data. And then we do also have to keep in mind the more casual audience isn't necessarily represented in this data as well. So people could be buying up and playing decks that might not be performing, but that doesn't stop people from buying those decks and playing those decks anyway on a more casual basis. So those are two big outliers we have to keep in mind when looking at this data. And we still also have to understand that the Japanese data is all coming from locals. So these are all just the tournament datas from all of the different locals that Japan and other places have been having. So there hasn't been like a huge super major tournament yet in Japan, but again, we could still extract a lot of data just from their local level tournaments alone. So hopping over to the English or American side of the Digimon card game market and how it's performing, I still think that sealed product, even for new sets coming out, is a little bit on the overpriced side, considering we know how low that they can go, and I think singles-wise we're definitely in a really good spot compared to where we were in the past. So hopping over to take a look at what the singles prices are doing, we could see that for the most part the market has been continuing to stabilize and cards are trying to find their more true price point. So even the ever so fabled Omnimon alt art definitely has came down quite a lot compared to what he was in the past, but for the most part the alt art cards is still going to be where the majority of the money is in the set, and the alt art cards, because they're harder to pull, are going to still hold a relatively decent price point compared to a lot of their normal art counterparts. But we still do have a couple of rares that are performing relatively well, just given the state of the current meta. So TK is still one of the hottest rares in the game, just because of how many good yellow decks there are currently in the meta, and all of those decks are playing TK, so it only makes sense that if yellow is just one of the best performing colors, that TK being a necessary card in every single one of those decks just means that he's going to be holding a relatively high price point, even though he is a rare. But outside of that, a lot of the SRs and rares are finding a really good healthy price point. Usually it looks like the SRs are going to be about $10 or below, all depending on what the SRs are. So the rares will fluctuate a little bit more than the SRs, but the SRs definitely are finding a solid price point, and it definitely lowers the overall entry to barrier of the game, just because the SRs are basically like the boss monsters most of the time, or key components of what the deck is going to be needing or doing. So we definitely can see that a lot of SRs that are relatively good are finding a really decent price, and this is also reflected in BT04 as well as all of the special boosters, where again, same type of trend, the alt arts are holding relatively high, and then the normal art cards are on the decline or stabilizing to a more proper price point. So Wargreymon, as an example, being one of the more popular and more played ones. As popular and played as he is, he's still only holding just above that $10 range, where every other SR outside of Chaosmon is just holding below that $10 range. So it depends on what the card is and how it's being perceived in the meta, and I definitely think with the influx of BT04 being a lot larger than we anticipated, it definitely helped lower the prices of the cards by quite a lot. And as such, the box EV and box overall value has decreased by a significant number. So the sealed boxes are definitely worth a lot less than what they seem, just because the chances of you pulling like high rare cards that are actually worth something are going to be a lot lower. So as a result, they had to forcibly lower the price point of those boxes. And I think BT05 is going to be a really interesting set because it is a really powerful set. It has a lot of really powerful and popular cards, but ultimately it all comes down to quantity and ratios. So hopping back over here, we could see that currently on pre-sale the boxes are about 155, which I think is way too high, considering if this set is going to perform anywhere near BT04, then I don't necessarily think it's going to be as big of a bloodbath, but it's still definitely going to be not necessarily worth the 155. Again, this could all change due to pull rates of the cards and the quantity of the set overall. So if this is a really popular set and everyone just pre-ordered it, then there's just going to be a lot more of it out there, and that initial bigger wave is definitely going to help decrease the cards' prices a lot faster. So as of right now, they do just have a couple of cards on here, and I believe the English side of the card game is going through the spoilers for BT05, even though we already knew what all of the cards were thanks to Japan and all of the translators. But I digress, and I definitely think BT05 is definitely going to be a really interesting set to look out for, and it's definitely going to be a very interesting set to watch to see how it develops, just because they are still continuously tweaking and changing things. So as an example, in this set, there is one less secret rare, and they upped the number of alt arts. So does that mean the price on the alt arts are going to go down, but the secret rares are going to go up? We don't know. And then how hard is it to pull any given secret rare or alt art? We also don't know. So there's just a lot of unknowns that we still don't know about that can make the set either a really successful set in terms of the secondary market and hold a decent EV, or it could be like BT04 and I don't want to say tank, but make it super easy to pull anything you want. And as a result, it'll make the card's overall value a lot lower just because it is that easy to get anything you need. But this is all just a very exciting stuff, and Digimon is a card game that's just continuing to grow and to evolve over time, and I definitely always look forward to seeing how things are changing in both Japan and the English side. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are different ways that you could support me in the channel. So one of those ways is I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so whenever you use that affiliate link to buy cards off of tcgplayer.com, then some of the money will go to supporting me in the channel. And on top of which, I also do stream over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu. So following and subbing is a good way to support me over on that platform as well. And on top of that, I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook. So whenever you buy one of my designs through them, then some of that money will also help go to supporting me in the channel. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.